Welcome to Your Iconic Image. If you want to take control of your image and be a power player in your space, then this is the show for you. Here we will arm you with tools and information to help you grow your brand on purpose. I'm your host, Marlena Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Now let's dive into today's episode. Jane Tabachnick, founder of Simply Good Press, is a content and PR strategist. Named one of the top 100 people online by Fast Company, she helps clients become highly visible and seen as an authority in their industry. Welcome, Jane.
So excited to be here.
So let's start at the basics here. First, define for us what PR really is.
Oh, I love this question. So PR in the textbook or dictionary definition is communicating with your stakeholders. So it's managing the communications, but the way most of us use it is public relations, or the result of it, which is publicity, which is being written about or featured in the media. So that could be in a magazine, a newspaper, on TV, even on a podcast.
So why is that the best form of content you can have?
Yeah, so it's the best form of content because in a model called PESO, which stands for paid, earned, shared, and owned, it's the highest form of content. So owned content would be your website, your social media profiles, anything that you own. Even though you don't own Facebook, you own your profile in a sense, and you control the content. With earned media, you really don't control the content. You earn the right in a way to be featured in the media, on a media platform. They, like us, the media spends a lot of time cultivating their audience, and they want to give their audience great content and only put the best experts in front of them. So when they invite you to be in front of their audience or write about you, they're saying that you've reached this level and they've basically vetted you. You've earned the right to be in front of their audience. And it gives the impression, even though it technically isn't, of being an endorsement from the media. So it gives that third-party credibility, and it elevates you to a position of authority and being seen as an expert.
And it always seems that the best kind of endorsement we can have is from other people. It's not really what we say about us, it's what other people say about us.
Exactly. So as I like to say, no one cares what you say about you. What matters is what other people say about you. So that's so correct.
Is there a best time to start to try and get publicity?
I think that you should start right away. And what I mean by that doesn't mean you're ready for the New York Times or to be on the Today Show, but every day you can do something simple like reaching out to, if you're on Twitter or Facebook, you can follow or like a publication. You can follow and like and share the content of specific writers, journalists, editors, like that, so you get on their radar. And I encourage people to do this authentically. Don't just follow people and share and like things you really don't like or care about, but you do this authentically and you start to build a relationship with them, and really magical things can happen. First of all, it feels good to help support someone in this way, because a lot of us post things and we hear crickets. So we start to doubt ourselves and think, is anyone listening? Is this content good or maybe not? Maybe it doesn't resonate with my audience. So just by helping validate and showing that you are listening, you are reading, you are watching, is really wonderful. And the media are like us. Journalists are people too. And now that newsrooms and media staff have gotten cut down, it's been a trend that's been happening, but certainly more so thanks to the pandemic, they oftentimes need more work. They're maybe freelancing. So their content being seen is really important to them on a lot of levels, not just for validation and perhaps a little ego gratification, but it can help them to get their work seen so that they get more work, so they can write about you more.
So with everything being more digital these days, how should we be looking at media in general?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is to understand your audience. So that can be your prospects, your partners, anyone you think of as your audience or stakeholders, and know where they spend time, what media outlets they're interested in, because the best strategy is to go where they're already spending time. So if they're not on Facebook, but they're on LinkedIn, then that's a better platform for you. So you want to be strategic about it, and then make your life easier and start to share, like, comment, and build relationships on platforms where your audience already spends time. And also try and understand what kind of content they like. What do they care about? You probably know this already if you're in business and if you've done some of your research, but maybe what form of content they like. Is the majority of our audience more readers than video watchers? And it's never going to be 100% that they only watch video. But sometimes you have a little bit more of a slant one way than the other. You know, they may prefer long form content, so really long detailed blog posts to short informational kind of blasts. So just knowing that really helps you put content out that they are interested in, they want to consume in a format that appeals to them. So that's puts you ahead of the game.
So a lot of this sounds like it is a free process. Do I have that wrong?
Sorry, a free process?
A free process.
Well, it absolutely can be. So there are really three ways that you can get publicity. There is doing it yourself, which can be free. There are a lot of great free tools that you can use to help get publicity. You can hire a firm, which can be expensive. A lot of times they are retainer based and they require a minimum of 3 or 4 months just to get started and work with you. Or there's what I call the hybrid method, which is kind of a combination of the two. So you can do your own PR and then you can outsource pieces of it. So maybe you don't feel confident in coming up with your story ideas or what we call pitches or pitch hooks. So you can hire someone just to help you come up with those. And then you can do the outreach and the pitching and all the other aspects that go along with doing public relations.
So let's say we wanted to get into any particular publication. And we have been following this publication. We've been sharing content of theirs. How do we approach them about sharing something of ours, or do we not? Do we just hope that they do?
No, you can't hope because, you know, if you want something to happen, you need to be proactive about it. So I believe Publicity has maybe a teeny bit of luck and timing, but it's really when preparation meets opportunity and you have to help create those opportunities. So you would want to reach out and pitch the media. So what you want to do is find out who the right people are, who's writing about your topic or who covers your topic. Sometimes in something like a newspaper or a magazine where they're staffers as opposed to freelancers, they'll actually have in their bio exactly what topics they cover. So that makes it easy, but sometimes that's not the case. So you need to look at the articles that they've written and get a sense of what the common theme is. What are they writing about? And then you want to pitch them that. Don't pitch them off topic. If they write about sports and you've got something that's about cooking, it doesn't matter how good it is, it's not going to happen. But if there's a tie-in between sports and cooking, then maybe there's a fit, right? So, and then you want to, this is the most important thing, I think, where a lot of people get hung up and sort of miss the mark. And that is creating your pitch in a way that you let the media know that you have something that their audience will value. So all of our goals may be to get featured in the media, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you can't say to the media, hey, I want to be in your magazine, I'm cool. They couldn't care. They get a lot of those, and that doesn't do it for them. What they want to know is, I've got a story that I think your audience will relate to because of this. And you can tell them exactly what you're thinking, because while it may be obvious to you, don't want to insult them, but on the other hand, sometimes you have to connect the dots, especially if it's something technology related or very, very industry specific. It may not be obvious to the person you're pitching exactly what you're thinking along those lines. So don't be afraid to spell it out. But you really want to focus on the value of what's in it for the audience, what's in it for them. And then if your pitch is focused that way, you have a much greater chance of succeeding. And the great news is, if you pitch it that way and you get into the media, you've achieved your goal of being featured and written about. So it's really a win-win.
So is our goal to write the piece and present it that way, or to present the idea and have them write the piece?
Yeah, so those are two different things. So I'm glad you brought that up. So when you pitch a traditional media outlet, they would be writing about you. But there is a form of, I call it content marketing, or becoming and I think of it as part of doing publicity or public relations, where You could pitch a blog or a publication on contributing an article to them. So you'd become a contributor and have a bylined article. It could be an ongoing column, or it could be a one-off, depending on the outlet and what they're interested in.
And it seems like it would depend on what we are looking for in the end, as far as growing our brand or our business or any of that type of thing. Because if we are, in fact, a writer of some sort, we certainly want that byline and whatever publication. But if we are looking to grow a personal brand, let's say, then perhaps we really want the story and it to be about us and someone else to write it. It's not necessarily necessary for us to write it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on your goals, but I think that writing the articles, even if you don't think of yourself as a writer, can be valuable, because that sometimes gives you an entree into a media outlet that might not be as quick to write about you, but you do have the opportunity to pitch them on an article. And some of them, you just have to pitch them an idea. Some of them want a fully written article in advance to see what it's like. So you have to just check out the outlet and see what their requirements are. But having an article that you've written in a publication provides that third-party credibility, because they don't take the articles from everyone. So again, you're getting that kind of perceived endorsement from them as a media outlet, and it's third-party credibility, and it can show up in the search engine. So that gives you some other love, social love, or SEO love, as I like to say. So there's a lot of value to that.
How does social media play into all of this? Can we leverage social media to get press?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of ways that you can do that. So you can use social media to build those relationships. I call it hugging an influencer, and an influencer can be a journalist, someone who's an Instagram influencer, or just someone you think of as a thought leader and someone you admire. So by using social media to build that relationship with them, you can start to get some press. As a matter of fact, one of my students in my Magnify Your Message course started doing this with someone who she just respected. She had no goals, but just she respected and wanted to let him know she appreciated his content, shared it. And then a conversation started with them. This is on Twitter. And he invited her to be on his podcast, and she was all excited. And I said to her, "You do realize it's one of the top podcasts out there?" And she said, "Oh, I didn't even know that." So just by doing this and building this relationship, she got invited on to one of the top podcasts that there is, which is pretty incredible.
That's great.
Yeah. So the other way that you can use social media, and I highly encourage this, is to share the press that you get. So I call it repromoting. So when you get press, you want to re-promote it, because when it happens, fantastic if you're in New York Times, USA Today, Oprah magazine, but say, Marlena, that you and I don't read that publication. It's kind of like it didn't happen.
Right.
And we want to make sure everybody sees and knows that we've gotten that press, not in a braggadocio way, but just to say, hey, I'm really excited, love, your feedback. I have this article or feature in this publication, or I'm so excited, and, please comment, or however you want to handle that, but just share it, and not just right after it comes out. You can put it into a social media scheduler and share it again in, say, 6 weeks, or on a different platform. So you can get a lot of mileage out of that, and you should, because it's an accomplishment, and the third-party credibility exists each time you share it, and that expert positioning.
And, I just have to ask this, because let's say somebody is following your social media and they decide to do a story about you, but it's not the most favorable story. So in your opinion, is all press good press?
Yeah.
And how do we rebound from bad press?
That's a tough one. So mostly all press is good press, but there are times when you're not happy with the coverage you get, and it's not considered something to do to ask them to change it. I mean, that's their job, is to write things as they see them, or as they perceive the facts to be, or their research shows the facts to be. So I don't encourage anyone to do that. So the thing that you would do in that case is maybe not promote that article as much. And then I would strongly encourage anyone that happens to, is to create some really good press. So spend time creating things that'll show up in the search engines to push that down. You can't hide it. You can't ask Google to take it off the search engines, but you can create a lot of other good things that'll show up. So that's less visible. Maybe it'll push it to page 2 or 3 and just have a lot of good positive press and maybe articles you've written that people see, so that that is a much smaller, if they see it at all, it'll have a much smaller impact.
Is it bad form to choose not to share it at all?
Oh, I don't know that I would share bad press that I got.
I didn't know if it was kind of owning up to your flaws or not, but I'm going to go with no.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. You know, if you can find a humorous angle in it, you might want to, but it's hard. It hits hard when we get negative press, even if we know there's some truth in it. You know, no one likes to have their flaws or their dirty laundry or something they're going through, which is not something they're happy about perhaps, or have control over, aired publicly and open to people to comment maybe before they really know all the facts. So it's okay not to make mention of it, you know.
So what are 3 things that we can do once we do get publicity that we're happy with?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing that I recommend is setting up a media room on your website. It can just be a simple page. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And I encourage people to link it from the top navigation, so it's really easy to find. People love that. It's often read as much as your about page. So people will go and see what's on your press page, and they will be pleased to find that. So that's one thing. The other thing is to repurpose it. So share it in multiple ways. And when you share it, this is a kind of ninja tip, tag the media outlet and tag the writer. So if you go to, say, Entrepreneur, if they've written about you and you use their tweet this, the link where you can just click the button and it'll pop up a window and share it. Typically, it doesn't tag the writer. It'll tag the publication. So if you take the time to find the writer's Twitter handle or whatever platform you're on, and typically they're on multiple platforms, and tag them, they'll really appreciate it. That also gives you more visibility. That means it'll get shared with their audience, so it'll get seen by a lot more people. So that's a really positive thing to do. And the third thing I would say is share it. And, you know, you can take a piece of publicity you've gotten and you can break it into smaller pieces. So there might be one line, like a soundbite that they've written about you, and you can make it into a graphic, like a quote graphic, and you can share that. So you can do a number of different things with the press that you get to, you know, create different formats out of it and share it.
Are there outlets that are easier to get into and get press from than others, or it really just depends on who you are and what your goals are?
Yeah, so the easiest, I would say, are probably local media outlets, because they are not covering as many people. So there's also not as much competition. And their goal is to cover local people, local companies, local stories. And the thing about it is sometimes people don't want to do that because they think it's not important or valuable. But even if your business is not a local business, if you serve nationwide or internationally, it's still valuable because it's third-party credibility and it's publicity. It's something you can put in your media room. But the thing about it that sometimes happens that people may not be aware of, which is really amazing, is that there's a lot of syndication amongst newspapers. And what that means is that a newspaper in Wisconsin may be in part of a syndication or distribution network with USA Today. So it may get published in your local paper and then get published in a bunch of papers and show up in USA Today.
Interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah. The other thing that can happen, I happen to live in a suburb of New York City that has a lot of New York Times writers and a few TV anchors and a well-known late night show hosts. There are a lot of people in the media where I live. So if you're featured in the local newspaper here or the local blog, some of them are going to see it. So I know people whose stories have gotten picked up because they were in the local paper and the local news anchor saw it and said, we've got to cover this.
Interesting.
So you just never know. So unless an outlet doesn't align with your values, say they curse a lot or they cover porn or gambling or something that just doesn't align with you, I would say don't poo-poo an outlet and think maybe it's too small. You just never know.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
How about mistakes that people make when they seek publicity? What kind of mistakes do you see that people make?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, two of them I mentioned earlier, so I'll go through them quickly. One of them is pitching off topic. So sometimes people will just find a media list and they'll just send the same pitch to every media contact they can find. So they might be writing the sports writer about cooking, or they might be writing about fashion to someone who only covers politics. And that's a great way to get deleted and maybe even blackballed. It's not a good idea. It's not beneficial. The other thing is to focus on you. I want to be featured. I'm cool. Cover me. That just is not, that's going to go in the trash can. So what else doesn't work? Just pitching an outlet that's not really a fit for you. If they don't cover your topic, it's like pitching a journalist off,
How beneficial is it to know the voice of the outlet? So, this magazine versus that magazine, or this writer's style versus that writer's style. Does that help?
Yeah, it definitely helps because you want to custom tailor your pitch. Look, it takes more work to custom tailor each pitch than to do that splatter, spray and pray, whatever it's called, approach where you send everyone the same pitch. It takes more time to read their content, to go through the publication, but it really helps you customize it. And I think a few targeted customized pitches are much more effective than just blasting out a lot of kind of generic ones. I think you'll have much better results just focusing on a few key outlets and then really taking the time to craft the pitch for them.
And I know if any of us are wondering how our visibility is, you actually have a visibility assessment. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I created a visibility assessment. It's really simple, it's fun, and I just want to encourage people not to be intimidated, because a few people said, I don't want to be judged, I'm going to get a low score. It's really not like that. I created it so that people who take it have a really good sense of how they're doing in terms of visibility and what other opportunities there might be for them to start focusing on. So it's really just meant to give you a kind of like time. This is where you are now, and here are things you might consider doing to get more visibility and authority positioning.
And we can't fix what we don't know is wrong. So
exactly. So it's really, it's kind of a fun way to share some knowledge about it and just plant some seeds that, okay, maybe you're not doing this yet, but this could be something to put into your planning, if not now, sort of long-term goals or bucket list goals.
And at what stage of the game should we really be hiring this out and not doing it ourselves?
Yeah, so budget is obviously one of the big factors, but also when your company really has some news that you want to share that is sort of a pivot point. Maybe you're launching a new product line, or you've made some big pivot like that. You may be entering a new industry, that could be, or new niche. That could be a good time. And maybe when the company hits a growth point and you've just really got the ability internally, it's not just about the money, but you have to have the internal resources to work with a PR consultant or team to get the best results, because there are things you'll need to do. You'll need to create your media assets, a good bio. You'll need to have professional headshots, all things that would help if you're doing your own PR, but it's a lot more accelerated and takes more time when you're working with a PR firm, and you'll probably get more opportunities. So you'll need to be available to do more interviews, answer more questions, all that kind of good, the good things that happen along with that.
And earlier you had mentioned that if we approach somebody in the sense of, oh, I just want to be in your magazine because I'm swell, that's not a good approach. But is it better for us to be pitching ourselves or what we do, or how we can be of benefit, or is it better for somebody else to be pitching us?
That's a really good question. There are some people, like I know Mark Cuban, has said that he believes we're the best people to pitch ourselves because we have the most enthusiasm and know our product or our service the best. So that's one point of view. A PR professional will know how to pitch. They're not going to feel as personal about it. So they're not going to be perhaps as intimidated. They're comfortable. They've done pitching before. So there's less of that factor. And they'll have some of the relationships already. So, I think it really is 50-50. I know that doesn't answer your question, but I think it really can be both.
Let's say we submit to a magazine and we are not accepted. Do they give us feedback or anything, or is there a way to get feedback so we know how to do it the next time?
Yeah, so I wish I could say there was feedback. There very rarely is feedback. Journalists are really, really busy. Sometimes you're lucky if you even get a no. Sometimes you just, it's gone into the Ethernet, if you will, and the ether, and it's gone. But the crazy thing is, I had something I had given up on. I think it was 4 months later, I heard back from the media. They wanted to feature one of my authors. So, and I just read a friend of mine just posted on social media that she heard back like a year and a half later. So sometimes they see the pitch, it looks good to them, the timing isn't right, but they've got it in a folder or the back of their mind to reach out to you and cover it when it does make sense. So it does happen. I'm not saying you should get your hopes up, but I usually give things 6 weeks to 2 months, depending on what the pitch is, and then figure it's dead. And what I do then, so you can write to them and ask, but I don't encourage that. Again, they're really, really busy. And especially if they're freelancers, if they're not on staff, answering each email takes time and kind of costs them money, time is money kind of thing. And so it's not really going to happen or going to help your relationship with them. And sometimes they don't have concrete feedback. It just isn't a fit. They can't explain why. It just didn't resonate. So in a perfect world, we get feedback, but in reality, it doesn't happen. So what you can do is take the same pitch and try a different outlet. You can customize it ever so much for another outlet. Or if you really think it's a great idea, then it can be something that you pitch as an article to a publication.
In the meantime, Jane, you gave us a lot of great information. And so I have 4 final questions for you. And the first one is, what was the best piece of advice you were ever given?
So the best piece of advice that I was ever given was, I'm a recovering fashion designer. I had one of my early fashion collections, and I went to a friend who was in the business, and I was seeking funding. And he said to me, it was $5,000, which to me was a lot of money at the time. This is many years ago, but it seemed like a huge ask. And he said, I'm not going to fund you, but I want to explain why. He said, you're not asking for enough money. You need $5,000 this month to get through your sample. I had to create samples to show the buyers. He said, what happens when the orders come in? You're not going to have enough money to finance them. So you have to go back and figure out how much you really need, because it's not $5,000. And that was a huge, huge lesson for me.
Next thing, share with us something on your bucket list.
On my bucket list, well, travel. I'm really feeling the urge to travel, but Vietnam is one of the top destinations on my list.
So when the toy companies finally get around to making an action figure of you, what 2 accessories will it come with?
Well, they would definitely have some fun eyeglasses, a few pairs, and if I can, there'd also be a hat collection.
Love it. And last one, how do people find you?
So the best way to find me, you can go to simplygoodpress.com, and that will share with you all the connection points.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Once again, I'm Marlena Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Please comment, like, or share this episode, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. For more information on how I can help you create your iconic image, visit marlenasemenza.com.